Hello there. Hopefully this is the first part that you're watching. This is the Friday Coven, and I am Enchantress Shane, and I'm here to tell you even more that I love community. I love being positive. I love going into the darkness to come out to have more positive. And the reason you all enjoy me. Oh, I didn't realize how I was going to lead in, but this is so fun. The reason you enjoy me, the reason I am who I am, the reason I can actually see truth instead of who's right and who's wrong, the reason I live in this house, the reason I look the way I do and my eyeballs are this color is because of improv acting. Not just improv, but dramatic improv acting, and I'm not exaggerating. I wish my teacher, who's not on social media, would come on and tell you the fucking train wreck that I was. And I'm not being hard on myself, it's a fact. Before I entered her class. And now, granted, I stayed and went to class for 10 years. So this wasn't like an overnight change. But it was such a change that sometimes it's hard to put into words. And so what I know to be true is the work was so impactful to me that the Creator, God, gave me the opportunity to teach the work to kids in prison because it's the neediest of populations that we have as like a society. And so I think the truth of the truth is, I think every other kind of healing is like nice and like sort of good, but nothing compares to the way I learned improv and the way I teach it. So this is the Friday Coven. I'm Enchantress Shane, and I come here every Friday, mostly, I would say 98% of the time, for the last 7 years. I have to actually figure that out when I started, but and I come here to share some truth, to share something that's inspiring, to get everybody coming together in community and to be provoked with their thoughts. And I've been just told recently that I don't really share a lot of stories about myself, and I don't know if that's 100% true on video, but in my writing it might be true. So I really want to welcome any questions that show up, or anybody who has a comment, or tell me more about this. I really want to know. I love those questions. It's actually really good for me to get those kind of questions. It's good for my human design to be asked questions. So ask questions. You can also give me some stars. That's a new thing. I am a teeny tiny scratching in the throat. I just was in bed for about 8 days. And so today I'm I'm not doing it anymore. I'm drinking shots of ginger, drinking liquid all day, sitting with my fucking selenite sticks. And I have another one for sale if you want. What's up, Tina? I'm so happy you're here. So, whoop. Okay. I also have another thing sitting here that I will bring out to you. Do you know who she is? Voila! Hello! It's the fanciest pig in town. It's a gift from one of my clients who's also a friend. And she's gonna just join us sitting here. Okay. So, see, I'm having this thing that's coming up right now that's oh, people are bored, they don't want to hear this. Well, if you're bored, you can leave. That's all. Okay, fine. Now that that's settled. So when I was little, I loved getting attention. I loved being on any stage. I was really happy. What's up, Andy? I remember the feeling of ooh, I'm asking for too much attention. I remember I got this long dress for my birthday, and for some reason my parents or my mom was let's return that. It's too long. But I knew it looked cool or something. I must have been 6 or 5. And I was like, take a picture of me. And I did this thing. It was like a one strap dress. And I went like that. And I remember thinking, ooh, the adults don't like that I'm asking for pictures. The adults are off. They're not into this. And so I've always had this like sense to feel what other people are feeling. And I'm usually right, you know? And so that sucks, and it's good, but it sucks. So moving forward in my life, I learned at some point, I think around puberty, that it's like, thanks. I love you. So that's what I read. So, okay, Tina, great. So when you wrote that to me, you wrote all those words, I read them, and what I pulled out from that was, you love me. That's why I said I love you. So fast forward, through puberty, I just learned, like, don't be conceited. Do not act like you like yourself, because other people will want to beat you up physically. And so I learned how to do this very aloof face, basically just to go numb. I'm going to share more of that because it's really fun to do. And when I'm right, it just feels really like, A, validating, but B, it makes me feel more connected. So I would put on this aloof face. That's a little exaggerated, but not really. And then basically I was just out looking for constant ways to not get beat up, to not get in trouble, to not, like, I knew I was beautiful, or I knew there was something about me. That's better. I didn't think I was beautiful. I knew there was something about me. And so when I would be out and about in high school, mostly junior high school, I would do this aloof face, which protected me in case there were 2 or 3 like really butchy girls, like, who the fuck does she think she is? That I would keep this aloof face and I would look towards them, but sort of look through them, because I felt them like being angry or hating me or something. Like, even if they would say, it's the same kind of fear if you've ever ridden the New York City train and you're like, or maybe you're not like, but you're like, someone nearby has a really big mental health issue and they're about to lose their shit. Like, please don't let it be losing their shit on me. And that was kind of how I would see things. So instead of having like a tough guy face, which somebody could then be like, what the fuck do you think you're so tough about? I had this aloof face. And the aloofness was not matching what was actually happening in my body, which really was the problem. Therein lies the problem. So many years later, when I went to improv class and I was used to faking joy or faking aloofness or faking like, hi, I'm exaggerating, but my face was very like smiley on the outside, but on the inside was so much suffering. And over the next 10 years, the first 3 especially, I got to relieve myself of suffering that I didn't even know was an option. And so when I started doing the work, I was like, oh my fucking God, who knew that it was an option to not be so mad at myself all the time? Who knew it was an option to not be constantly judging myself and to make myself wrong? And it wasn't like it happened overnight or even the first year. Like, I was really a pain. I don't think my teacher would use the word pain, but I was a lot of work. And by that I mean I was easily triggerable. I wouldn't do anything about family. I wouldn't do anything about weight. I wouldn't do any scenes that had to do with like Jewish, like the biggest topics in my life that were probably causing me the most pain. I was like, I'm not touching those. I'm not dealing with that shit. So, and one day my teacher said to me, you're really good on stage, almost like Sex in the City, where it's like, hey, everything's great. And I looked at her blankly. I'm like, what else is there? Like, what are the other goals? What else should I be doing? Like, I had I actually didn't know. And I remember playing a scene with this guy, Mark. He was a great actor and really handsome. And in the scene, I loosened my grip a little bit. And I played a very surface level date. And he was he was him in the scene. And in the scene, I was like, don't you like my bracelets? Do you think I'm pretty? Like, I like let all this stuff out. And he got totally triggered and I got totally triggered because it was like, it's kind of the way I am. And I was like, why doesn't this guy on the date in the scene like what I'm saying? And it just like put my brain into a tailspin. And so whenever I talk about improv, and I have this event coming up, Strut the Stage, it's like I almost don't teach this work because it's so fucking sacred to me that when people don't give it to themselves, I'm like, I go back into that bully and I'm like, you are missing the biggest opportunity of your fucking soul's experience. And that's the way I was when I first got into the work. I just was like, anyone that knew me, and speak up if you're here. A lot of those people don't talk to me anymore, really. Because I sort of was like, I'm not going to bars. I'm not drinking. I'm not doing the conforming things anymore. I'm only going to class. Do you want to come? And I did have some brave soul friends, like 3 years later, that did come. But they were like, weirded the fuck out. It's a class. It's like, but a lot of acting classes teach you to be fake and teach you to be a character. But this work, and really take this in, is teaching you to be real in an imaginary set of circumstances. So I got to experience all the feelings that I didn't want to feel. But it was playful, so I allowed it. Now, you don't just open your heart the first class. Like, sometimes it takes a while. Depends how fucking old you are. It depends how stuck you are, and this doesn't work. Now, the intention is I'm open, I'm curious. And sometimes you kind of repeat the same exercise, and then there's a moment that's like, I feel. And so as a society, we mostly don't feel our feelings. The last couple of years, a lot of people have, because we've been so pressed to the edge of fucking tragedy. But a lot of my feelings were just like inappropriate or weird, or I didn't know what to do with them. So I just was like, well, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, crying was one of them. And then there were times like in scenes that I played God, or I played like a deity, and I gave myself wisdom that I didn't realize I had. Like, it was crazy because all I did was go to class and discover new parts of myself. And so if I wanted to play a wealthy asshole woman and know what that's like, then I did. And it wasn't like the wealthy know-it-all ass woman that I would see on the street. It was like me as her. So I didn't have to change or do anything. So I went to this comedy class the other night. It was amazing. Someone asked me who my teacher was. I don't remember. I have to find out. Her name is Karen. And we were doing a bunch of, we were talking, and then we did a bunch of we did, people got up on the mic and did their jokes or their pieces. So I did mine. It was funny. I've worked on it before, so it wasn't a brand new thing. But it's an all women's class. So then they took us out to have a drink afterwards. I got a salsa. And 2 women we were sitting at the table, were like, what's this improv that you're talking about? Because it's the improv about saying no. And it's dramatic improv. So a lot of people take improv and it's about saying yes, like yes and, which I only did once when I dropped in some weird class in the city. And it was terrible because everyone was just trying to one-up each other. And no one was connecting. They were just like, hey, I'm going to be funny over here. Hey, I'm going to try to be funny over here. And it was like, ugh. So this improv is all about relationship and relating and connection and depth. And it's why people go to Broadway and plunk down $150, $300 to a dramatic piece, because they want to feel. They don't know that, but that's why they do it. So when I do this work, when I want to be in the fucking scenes, which I think in this show I will, because fuck, I want it. It's really important to remember that it's structured improv. We don't know as performers where it's going to go. So we're after this comedy class, and we sit at the table, and one woman's like, oh, I want to know more about improv. And I start talking about it, and I start choking. So then I came back, I go, you know what? I don't want to talk about it. Let's just do a scene. So I did 2 scenes. And the first one, they were both fucking great. I went on a date a couple of weeks ago. We did another scene. It was fucking great. I broke this guy's heart in a minute. And then I was like, okay, we're just in a scene. One time, I did a scene with a guy. We met at a bar. It was a planned meeting. We did a scene. I went into some crazy shit with him. And then the bartender, who is a local guy, and he was studying to be a nurse at the time, he goes, Miss, I just want to let you know. Okay, so the scene was about, I was a pregnant woman, but I was drinking heavily, and I was telling this friend at the bar, like, I'm just going to continue, whatever. I was just like denying my alcoholism, and I was saying I was pregnant. And so we're leaving the bar, and the bartender comes over, and he's like, listen, ma'am, I'm studying to be a nurse, and I just think, like, I can't help but butt in, if you're pregnant. I go, oh my God, it wasn't real. And he was bugging out, like, is this part of it? I go, no, I'm really not. This is just a scene. And I saw him years later, and I go, oh my God, you were the bartender that thought I was telling the truth. So it gets really deep, and so that's life, and that's dramatic improv. Another scene I did at a restaurant with this guy a couple of weeks ago, I like broke his heart, and basically I was his therapist and he was my patient, and we hadn't seen each other. And then basically it's about saying no. So I had an ask for him, but part of my reveal was that I was getting ready to marry his brother. Like, we had fallen in love. But it was really because I liked him, but he was my client, so I couldn't, follow through. So I fell in love with his brother instead. And he was game. He wanted to play, And then I was like, do you have a brother? And he did have a brother. So it was just like, you never know what you're going to touch on. And some scenes you can plan. You can be like, you know what? I want to work some shit out with my brother. I want to work some shit out with my mother. And I remember doing a scene where I was my mother in the scene. And I remember while we were getting ready, which is called loading, the woman who was playing me, she was over there and I was over here, and I started to feel sick in my belly, and I was like, oh shit. And I started to feel scared, and I was like, oh, maybe it's scary to be my mother. Like, I can be scary in the mouth, I was always a big mouth. I always said mean things. Like, I could really get to the core. Thank God now I'm a loving person, and I can get to the core of love. But you just learn a bunch of things about yourself. And so you might have an intention, or you might be like, you're definitely going to have an intention, and you might be like, this is the scene I want to do. Or you might be like, ooh, I'm open, whatever, let's just see. And my job as the director is to create a scene that supports you in getting what you want. So if you come in with the intention of, I want to be joyful, I want to connect to my joy, I want to connect to my rage, I want to connect to my power, then we create a scene that gives you that. Come here, Cooper. And so I just really remember so many scenes in my life because they changed my life. Coming home from that class where I was my mother and then I was scared, my relationship with her shifted because of me. Because I was like, I don't want to be a scary daughter. I don't want to be a threat. I don't want to be nasty and rude and all the things. So that's why this kind of improv is really good for people into self-development, because you get to take the lessons that your character got and apply them to your life. And to me, that is so fucking priceless. And I have nothing against actual therapy, but this is so therapeutic because you don't have to talk about your problem. You just act it out. And you can act out someone else, you can act out yourself, you can act out, like, it's just like so unlimited in the ways that you can get healing. And so when people say like, oh, this other kind of healing, I'm like, yeah, maybe it's nice, but it's not as efficient as saying no to someone in a scene that you supposedly care about. And I swear, like, my eye color changed. You see how now my eyeballs are like light brown? Before the class, my eyeballs were dark brown, I swear. And I remember, because you get an eye contact a lot, which is already uncomfortable. And so I remember people being like, your eyes are different than they were. And I'm like, yep. I didn't think about it till many years later. And it's like, when you hold shit in and you don't express yourself, guess what? It sits in you, brooding. You know, that's why when you see a lot of people, they have faces like this. You ever see people, old people? Let me think about what they really look like. So, some people have that face. Or, like, they're stuck in a face. I love those people. But there's something to that. You know, did you ever see a little kid who's stuck in a sad face? And look at their parent. They're also stuck in a fucking angry, sad face. That's real stuff, you guys. That really creates darkness if it's not allowed out. And kids have big emotions. And if they're not allowed to have those emotions, they learn that adults are mean, basically. And they try to figure out some coping mechanism. And this improv unwinds all that shit. All right. Anybody have any questions? And this is also question asking if you're on the replay. Let me bring back Miss Piggy. I mean, I can't even do her voice. What's it? Kermit! Like, she had like a big voice. And she was always like very dramatic. Yeah, she was always like, look, she has gloves on. She's like ready for the opera. I have to give her a little wash in the face. All right, what's up, Shalom? What's up, Shalom? Oh, hello, gentlemen. I'll bring back Miss Piggy because the gentlemen like her. She's, you know, imagine us like little kids learning that like Miss Piggy is sexy. She even has like a satin undergarment on. Look, that's like fabulous. And she and Kermit, they were lovers, right? They weren't married. And she would just like throw herself on the floor and she would be like, give me what I want. She had that crazy voice. How did it go? Kermit! Like it was scratchy in the throat. Yeah, so I want to just share that, you know, when you hear me like a bully talking about self-expression, my first self-expression, oh, I'll tell you this part too, before this was in college, I took an acting class. And I remember the teacher exactly because he had come into a club I was working in years later. And I was like, ah! Anyway, we stood in a circle and the teacher was doing a warm-up exercise. And the only warm-up exercise he had us do was make a noise. Now, this was in college, right? So it was 94, 95, about 1995. I never quote years, but I remember this because it was such a big fucking deal. And I thought, like, I want to be an actress. Yeah. And we went around the room and he said, make a big noise or make a noise. He didn't even say make a big noise. And it was like, I felt the anxiety. I felt like it was going to be my turn. And he's like, Miss Coleman, nothing came out. And I was like, oh my God, just do it. And nothing came out a couple times. And it's like I felt stupid because nothing came out. And then I felt stupider because nothing still came out. And then the attention was all on me. And I just never went back to class again. So just to tell you where I used to be, I know that I don't really know anybody. I mean, you want to know where I used to be in my life? I have another Facebook page. It's Shane B. Coleman. Go over there, explore a little bit. Thank you. And you'll be like, oh shit, she was out quite a bit, drinking, hanging out, like vacations, partying, like no consciousness, just like out. It was still a lot of fun, but it was definitely not a positive. I wasn't positive. I wasn't, I was just having like a lot of drinking fun. So that's my other Facebook page. What's up, Mike? And so just, owning where I came from is so important, which is like judgmental, quiet, like faking this loudness, faking being happy with myself. And now I really look in the mirror and I really see beauty. And sometimes it's not physical beauty. It's like I see my heart. I see how much I care. And I'm only able to do that because of my teachers. It wasn't just like improv acting. I don't want to say that, because a lot of improv is like actually harmful, where they make you memorize and they make you think there's something wrong with you, because if you're not funny, then obviously you suck. But we all have drama in our lives. We've all experienced sadness. We've all experienced anger, rage, joy, peacefulness. And to have an outlet at where to go is it's the most healing thing on the world, and everything else is bullshit. I remember, getting a raise or getting like a client for the first time and getting paid $3,700 in full. And I remember being like, oh, in the past, I would go to a bar and celebrate because like that's all I knew. And I remember being like, wow, I get to go to class and not just be joyful about the $3,700, but I get to expand that joy. And now it's like I have $37 million because I've embodied that joy. I'm not a naturally embodied person. Like, I had to learn it. I mean, I'm sure as a kid I was, for sure. We all are. And then puberty hits, and usually we're like, I just want to belong. I just want to fit in. And I still talk about that time because it's still relevant. Those parts still have an impact on how, they still have a on the main stage, they have a role and they suck. So we don't want that. Not that we don't want that, but I don't want my inner teenager running the show, because she's anxious, self-conscious, all fucked up. She feels like she's missing out, constantly disappointing people. I do want to hear what that part has to say, and the best place to do that is to be on stage. And so strutting the stage is like strutting all your parts without shame. Do you know how big of a fucking deal that is? Like, okay, I forgot to ask you questions. If you ever experienced shame, put an S in the box. I know that's like a big fucking question. Like all these business classes I take, they're like, ask something light and tell them to put it in the box. And what do I ask? Like, have you experienced shame? Oh, yeah. Anyway. Thank you, Karen. Oh my goodness, brave goddess, of course, who is already coming to strut the stage. So it's like when we have shame, we do all these coping mechanisms to cover that shit up because it feels uncomfortable. And so when you leave it on the stage, nobody fucking knows. It's like you and your higher power, your God, your creator, and you're just like, I was just witnessed in leaving some shit on the stage. Bye. It's like compost. And everyone has a different experience. And of course, I want everyone to have their best experience of their life, like I did. But I really work to not be attached to that. And it's uncomfortable sometimes, Like if you've never experienced your joy, you might not even know and be like, I don't know what's happening. If you've lived your life mostly numb, which I had, I was like, I'm having this strange feeling. What the fuck is this? I remember I taught, it was a bunch of first responders, family members, and I taught this work. Yes, Glenn. Am I saying your name right? So I remember I was teaching this work to anybody that I would do a workshop in front of. And I was like the parent coach, and I was doing a workshop in front of Tuesday's Children. And Tuesday's Children is an organization that worked with families of people who lost their lives in 9/11. Okay? Tough bunch of cookies. A lot were just like beautiful families, So I remember this woman, she was in her 90s. And I was like, Shane, are you really going to do this work with them? And I had them get in a circle I didn't go full on to make scenes with them, but just the warm-up exercises. This woman in her 90s who had just lost her husband or son or grandson, like it was fucking tragic. Tough cookie. She wasn't like, oh, Shane's wonderful. She was like, I'm here for a meeting. You know, that kind of like tough cookie. So we did a bunch of warm-ups. And at the end, I asked everybody, you know, what do you feel? What's happening for you right now? And she said, I feel a strange joy. And she said it just like that. And I was like, oh my goddess, like blessings on your fucking soul. The fact that I learned this work and I get to give it to people who would never be in touch with me. It feels like God's work, you know? It feels like, why would that woman be at my workshop in that moment? Like, that's what a big of a deal this type of dramatic improv means to me, you know? And my teachers really taught me unconditional love. I never understood. I was like I knew words, but I didn't know words in my body. Like, I knew the word love. I knew the word compassion. I'm sure if I read it in a book, I would just be like, okay, cool, compassion, whatever. But I never experienced it. And so I remember another day I went to class. I was running in the rain. I was late. I didn't want to be late. It sucks being late. The room was small. Being late sucks. I was coming from fucking Bay Ridge to the Upper West Side. And I was drenched. And I was like, I'm so sorry. You know, I tried to be quiet. And she's like, Shane, get up there. And so I got on the stage. She gave me, Erin Flowers is her name. She gave me a couple of, she's like, walk around, connect to your sadness. All of a sudden, bawling. Okay, get neutral. Okay, connect to your joy. Wah! It was just like, she was just playing my instrument. And then I was like, phew. And then I remember I went to the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I was like, whoa. Like, years just came off my face. Like, literally, I was running in the rain, feeling worried, stressed, freaked out. I did a couple of warm-ups while being seen, and my whole shit changed. Again, this was like 10 years of my life. The first 2 years, I did not do anything else social except bully other people to come to this class with me. And so when I did my one-woman show, I picked 5 characters that were really meaningful, and I did a bunch of, you know, that was a writing. That was a write, like a play. I was a playwright for that. But I'm an improv queen, and I'm not here to make you laugh. But you know what happens is the truth is funny. And so sometimes a lot of the darkness that's like, ugh, is funny because it's a relief to the nervous system to be able to be like, somebody's saying it out loud. You know, and then there were scenes that were really funny. You know, because life is funny. And when you're in a scene and there's 2 people that are in a relationship, what's up, Patty? And they care about each other. They know each other. And when you build a scene properly, the audience feels that care. And then they get invested. And then when you're the audience, which is also really important, you're like, what are they going to do? What would I do? What did my sister do? Like, it's all this mishigas in the head. And there were times, I had my best compliment ever. I'm going to go after this. I brought my friend Mike to a show. He used to have a drug problem. I bring this up for a reason. But he was already sober. But I brought him to the show. Upper West Side, the John Hoos Theater. He sat in the front and the center. So I kind of sensed and saw where he was. And the show was over. And he goes, you know, I'm a dozer. And he did. Like, we used to go to dinner. He'd fall asleep before we ordered. The waitress would come over. Well, that happened once, but it was funny. And he was sleeping. And he goes, listen, I'm a dozer, but that was really fucking good. I didn't fall asleep at all. That was like the best compliment we got. You know, and sometimes the show would be, we did a bunch. And sometimes the show would go dark and sad. And it's like, sorry, folks. I mean, we knew we had a structure, but we didn't know the details. And, yeah. So, if you want a big fucking life change, come take Strut the Stage. We start February 25th. And we also, on the 18th, are having the show in Rockaway. So grab your ticket. They're $11 for a ticket to come see the show. And you can look at the details. I'll put in the comments the link. And that's all for now. Have a beautiful Friday night. Yeah, I know. Me too. And if you have any friends that might be interested, like, share it. We have up to 10 spaces. Basically, you would be friends with this guy. He's like a cool guy. Yeah. The way he said it was so classic him. It was like, what a compliment, you know, because theater is not a concert, you know, so there are moments where it's low and you know, you're like in an emotional thing with people. And so it's not like there's noise to keep you up. Yeah. So you get it. Thanks for watching that. Yeah, and that's it. So it's all happening in Rockaway Beach. It's not far from New York City. It's going to be mainly around 116th Street. Our first meetup is at 88th Street, but it's really accessible by train. If you're interested in doing this, drop a thumbs up in the comments and I'll send you the information. And sometimes you have questions, but you don't realize you have questions until I ask you specifically. And this is really a thing that is fucking good for you. Okay, Patty, it's good. That's all I want to say. It's good for every fucking body. You know why? Because if you're full of shit on stage, you'll be full of shit in life. And if you're full of and if you're fucking true to who you are in life, then that will shine through on the stage and you're giving yourself an opportunity to be seen. It is too far from Toronto. I guess so. Anyway, yeah. You know, if it was a weekend workshop, there were people that used to fly in from all over the place. Like when I did shows, we'd get together Wednesday night. We'd get together for regular class. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night show. A fucking weekend. And we'd have killer shows. People would be like, what? You guys have definitely made that up before. Oh my goodness. So Rockaway Russell is here. So that's my invitation is, and maybe we'll do a weekend one in the future. And then if you want to fly in for it, yeah, I'm super open to it. Listen, you guys, now that we are in full swing and I'm doing an in-person series, this one is broken up over weeks. I live and learn, you know, maybe it could be in the future, you know, 3 or 4 days. Maybe I'll start teaching a class once in a while so that people can dip their toes in and then see if they want to do a show. Well, that's exactly what I'll do. So stay tuned on that. But if you have any questions, just definitely shoot me an email or a message or put up a thumb in the comments and then we'll talk about it in the future. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It is 2 years since my Aunt Miriam passed away today, so it feels like a beautiful blessing to be talking about the stuff that I love so much and not sitting in grief, which I'm also open to do, but just like it's also nice to talk about the good things. So, and she's a good thing. Have a beautiful night, and I will see you all soon. Mwah. Bye.